My name is Alara Vance. For the first 20 years of my life, that name was synonymous with Blackwood Lake, with the scent of pine needles after a summer rain, and with the quiet, suffocating weight of expectation. The Vances were not just residents of the valley. In their minds, they were its architects, their history entwined with the Whispering Cypress Lodge, a bastion of old-world privilege nestled on the water's edge. My father's grandfather had helped lay the foundation stones. My mother's family had donated the grand piano that sat, perpetually silent and polished, in the main hall. I was raised to believe that this legacy was a current, and my only choice was to be carried along by it. 5 years ago, I chose to swim for a different shore. I left the valley, left the preordained path of marrying well and managing the family's passive income portfolios, and moved to the city. I built a life for myself, brick by painstaking brick. I founded a small, ethical investment firm, Hearthstone Ventures, with the mission of revitalizing communities and properties that had lost their way, not by gutting them, but by nurturing them back to health. It was a philosophy my family found bewildering, a quaint and sentimental business model they were certain would fail. To them, I had not built a life, I had dismantled a birthright. Now, I was returning. The winding mountain road was just as I remembered, a green tunnel of ancient firs and cedars. With each curve, a memory surfaced. There was the flat rock where I learned to skip stones, my father's patient hands guiding my own. There, the clearing where my sister, Celine, and I had built a fort of fallen branches one golden autumn. These were the memories I held on to, the ones from before the lodge became less of a home and more of a gilded cage, its rules and hierarchies poisoning the very air I breathed. The Whispering Cypress Lodge was exactly as I remembered it. A sprawling masterpiece of timber and river stone, it rose from the shore of Blackwood Lake like a natural formation. Its wide verandas were dotted with wicker chairs, its lawns manicured to an impossible green. It smelled of wood smoke, beeswax, and money so old it had forgotten how to count itself. The same lodge that had been my family's summer heart until I chose a different life 5 years ago. I pulled my modest electric sedan, a quiet testament to my different values, into the grand, circular driveway. A young valet, his uniform crisp, hurried over. He glanced at my car, then at me, his expression a polite but clear mask of confusion. "Miss, the service entrance is around the back," he said, his voice soft, almost apologetic. He was used to the gleaming hoods of European luxury cars, not the unassuming profile of my vehicle. I was about to correct him when a voice, sharp and glittering as shattered ice, sliced through the tranquil afternoon air. "Oh, for heaven's sake, Alara. Are you actually trying to use the main entrance? How utterly charming." My sister, Celine, drifted down the wide stone steps from the main terrace. She was the perfect portrait of lodge life, a flowing linen dress the color of cream, a wide-brimmed sun hat, and a glass of rose held delicately in her manicured hand, despite it being just past 1 in the afternoon. Behind her, framed by the massive cedar archway, I saw our mother, Lydia, observing the scene with a practiced air of detached amusement, pretending not to be a part of my welcome. "The staff uses the service road, darling," Celine continued, a small, condescending smile playing on her lips. She gestured vaguely with her wine glass toward a gravel path hidden by a row of sculpted hedges. "Though I'm surprised you're here at all. Didn't you give all this up to become, what was it again? Some sort of do-gooder investor in the city?" "My firm is called Hearthstone Ventures," I supplied, my voice even. I stepped out of the car, the warm mountain air a stark contrast to the chill of her greeting. "We focus on sustainable development." She wrinkled her nose as if I'd mentioned something unpleasant. "It must be so taxing living like ordinary people." The valet, whose name tag read Arthur, shifted on his feet, his gaze fixed on a point somewhere over my shoulder. He was trapped, a silent witness to a family drama he hadn't asked to be in. Through the lodge's vast, paned windows, I could see the familiar faces of members turning to look, their curiosity piqued by the return of the prodigal daughter. "Alara, darling." Mother finally descended, her movements graceful and measured. She brushed a dry, cool kiss against my cheek, her perfume a familiar cloud of lily and disapproval. You really should have called. The lodge has certain protocols about unannounced guests. I glanced at my watch. 1:02 p.m. exactly on schedule. I offered a small, calm smile. Actually, Mother, I'm not here as a guest. Just then, a golf cart appeared, zipping up the driveway with more haste than was typical for the lodge's sedate pace. At the wheel was Mr. Davies, the lodge's general manager, a man whose permanent expression was one of harried anxiety. He was clutching a thick leather portfolio to his chest, his face flushed. "Miss Vance," he called out, breaking a little too sharply and nearly fumbling the folder. "My apologies for the confusion at the gate. We have the final documents ready for your signature." Celine's wine glass paused midair. "Documents." Mother's perfectly composed smile faltered, a tiny crack appearing in the flawless facade. "What is he talking about, Alara?" I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen, bringing up my calendar for the day. "Right on time, Robert." "Thank you. Shall we go over the new staff directives?" "I believe the transition of management officially takes effect in—" I paused, glancing at the time again. "Oh, it already has. As of 1 o'clock. Transition of management?" Mother's voice rose to a pitch I hadn't heard since the day I told her I wasn't going to law school. "What on earth are you talking about?" Mr. Davies, looking immensely relieved to be following a script, handed the portfolio to me. "The final transfer deeds, Ms. Vance. The Board of Trustees ratified the acquisition late last night." "Excellent." I opened the portfolio, my eyes scanning the familiar, comforting language of contracts and clauses. "And the internal communications went out as requested? I want everyone, from housekeeping to the grounds crew, to be aware of the ownership change." Celine let out a short, brittle laugh. "This is absurd. Daddy would never, ever allow the lodge to be sold. We're founding members. This is our home." "Father," I said, not looking up from the papers, "hasn't held a voting position on the board for over 2 years. Not since his financial restructuring." My mother's hand fluttered to her pearl necklace. "How did you know about that?" The words were a strained whisper. I finally looked up, meeting her shocked gaze. "The same way I knew the lodge itself was dangerously overleveraged. The same way I knew that a significant number of the founding families have been quietly liquidating their shares for the past 18 months to service their private debts. Through the large windows, I saw it happen. Staff members across the Great Hall and on the terrace began to subtly check their phones and work tablets. A wave of silent communication was rippling through the lodge. I saw expressions of shock, of confusion, and on a few faces, a dawning, unmistakable look of hope. A few of the senior staff were already turning and walking purposefully toward the main entrance. But who would buy it? Celine's voice trailed off as the terrible, impossible realization began to dawn on her face. Her eyes widened. "That little firm of yours." "Hearthstone Ventures," I supplied gently. "We specialize in acquiring legacy properties. Places with deep roots and good bones that have been mismanaged by a generation, more concerned with appearances than with sound fiscal strategy." Mother sank onto a stone bench that flanked the entrance, her impeccable posture finally collapsing. The carefully constructed world she inhabited was dissolving around her. "This isn't possible." "Actually, it's quite simple," I said, taking a pen from my jacket pocket and signing the final page with a steady hand. The lodge needed a significant capital infusion to avoid insolvency. The members needed a discreet exit strategy. And I paused, letting my gaze drift past them to the shimmering lake, to the tall cypress trees that gave the place its name. "Let's call it a chance to restore a place I love." "Ms. Vance," Mr. Davies interrupted softly. "The senior staff are gathering in the library as you requested." "Perfect. Please let them know I'll be there in a moment," I said, handing the portfolio back to him. "And please communicate to everyone that all current employment contracts will be honored, with a 15% wage increase, effective immediately. We'll start with the service staff, who, I understand, have been shouldering the burdens of this place with very little appreciation." Celine's face had shifted from disbelief to a hot, simmering fury. "You can't just come in here and change everything. This place has traditions." "Actually," I said, pulling a smaller, single document from my briefcase I can. As of 1 p.m. today, Hearthstone Ventures holds a controlling 78% stake in the Whispering Cypress Lodge. That includes, I added, my voice softening slightly, the shares your family held. All of them. Our shares? Mother's voice was barely audible. The ones your father used as collateral for that last bridge loan. I met her gaze, not with triumph, but with a quiet sadness for the choices that had led them here. The very loan he defaulted on 4 months ago. Hearthstone acquired that debt portfolio from the bank last Tuesday. The valet, Arthur, who had been standing by my car this whole time, a silent observer to the dismantling of an empire, finally cleared his throat. His expression was one of tentative, fragile hope. "Excuse me, Miss Vance. Does this mean that educational stipend you mentioned in the staff letter? The one for employees' families?" I turned to him and gave him a genuine smile, the first one that had reached my eyes all day. "I believe you have a granddaughter, Maya, who has her heart set on the State University's nursing program. Please have your son-in-law contact my new HR director. Hearthstone has a comprehensive education assistance program. We'd be honored to help." Arthur's face broke into a radiant, disbelieving grin. He stood up straighter, his shoulders losing a decade of weary deference. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am." The next hour was a whirlwind of structured change. In the library, a room that had always intimidated me with its stern, leather-bound books and portraits of glowering ancestors, I met with the heads of each department. I didn't give orders, I asked questions. What did they need? What were their biggest challenges? Where were the systemic failures? I spoke of partnership, of respect, of building a sustainable future not just for the lodge, but for the people who were its true lifeblood. I saw suspicion melt into cautious optimism, then into genuine enthusiasm. We were no longer just managing a luxury retreat, we were restoring a community. When I emerged, I found my mother and Celine still on the terrace, flanked now by a small, murmuring crowd of members who had heard the news. They watched me as I walked through the main hall, my tablet in hand, making notes for the architects and designers I'd be bringing in. "This is the members' dining room," Celine protested, her voice sharp as I paused at its entrance. "You can't just let anyone in." "You're right," I agreed, turning to face her. "It's been far too exclusive. As of today, all dining facilities are open to staff during their designated meal breaks. The kitchen staff that prepares the food should be allowed to eat it in the same room it's served." "But the tradition, the prestige," Mother began, her voice pleading. "The tradition of creating a class system within these walls is precisely the problem," I interrupted gently but firmly. "It fosters an attitude that some people are inherently more valuable than others based on their surname or their stock portfolio. That tradition ends today." My phone buzzed with an email from my office. A small smile touched my lips. "Ah, perfect. The new membership review committee has been impaneled and is ready to begin its work." "Reviews?" A haughty voice cut through the nervous whispers. Mrs. Gable, a woman whose primary hobby was finding fault with the staff, pushed her way to the front of the small crowd. "What on earth is there to review?" I looked at her, my expression neutral. "All current memberships are being reevaluated against a new code of conduct, Mrs. Gable. It includes criteria like respectful treatment of staff, positive community engagement, and adherence to the lodge's new mission of inclusivity." I pulled up a file on my tablet. For example, the new code has a zero-tolerance policy for verbal abuse of employees. Looking at the incident logs from the past year, your membership might be one of the first ones we review. I let my eyes scan the screen. "I see 23 formal complaints filed against you by staff for, let's see, demeaning language and unwarranted accusations. Your review should prove quite illuminating." The crowd grew silent. Mrs. Gable's face, usually a mask of imperious disdain, was a blotchy canvas of red and white. Many of them, I knew, had witnessed her tirades. Many had been guilty of similar behavior, protected by a culture of impunity that was now gone. "Robert," I called out to Mr. Davies, who was observing from a discreet distance. "Please ensure every current member receives a copy of the new bylaws by email." I draw their attention to Article 4, Section B, Automatic membership suspension pending review for any act of discrimination or harassment. Mother finally found her voice, a thread of desperation running through it. Alara, please. Surely we can sit down and discuss this. As a family. Father is welcome to schedule a call with my legal team, I replied, my voice softening again. It was difficult to see her like this, so unmoored. But I would advise him to read the asset seizure clauses in his defaulted loan agreements first. The ones tied to his personal guarantees. Celine's face went pale. The loans, you bought all of them? Every last one, I confirmed quietly. It's amazing what financial institutions are willing to part with when they believe they're offloading toxic debt to a faceless corporation, rather than the daughter the debtor wrote off as a sentimental failure. My tablet chimed. It was an incoming video call, one I had been expecting. I answered it and turned the screen so the small crowd could see. The face that appeared was that of Eleanor Rothschild, the matriarch of a European banking family and one of Hearthstone's primary investment partners. She was elegant, sharp, and exuded an aura of unshakable authority. Alara, my dear, she said, her voice a pleasant, cultured alto. I trust the transition at the lodge is proceeding smoothly? My mother made a small, choking sound. The name Rothschild was, in her world, akin to royalty. Miss Rothschild is my partner, I explained to the stunned onlookers. Hearthstone is a joint venture. It turns out that new vision and old wisdom make for a powerful combination when both parties are grounded in mutual respect. Indeed, Eleanor said with a knowing smile. Some of our, let's call them legacy stakeholders, are often resistant to change. We encountered a similar situation at the St. Moritz Alpine Club last winter. It's remarkable how quickly people adapt when they realize their privileges are not, in fact, inalienable rights. I saw Celine's sharp intake of breath. The society pages had been filled with whispers about the mysterious, progressive takeover of the exclusive Swiss club. That was you too, she whispered. Among others, I confirmed. Hearthstone has had a productive year. It's amazing what one can accomplish when people consistently underestimate you. My phone buzzed with another text, this one from the new head of operations. Staff meeting concluded. Morale is through the roof. They're ecstatic about the on-site childcare initiative. Childcare. Mother looked as if she might faint. Here? At the lodge. In what used to be the West Wing Spa, yes, I nodded. Don't worry, we're commissioning a new, larger wellness center. One that will be open to all our staff and guests, not just a select few. I looked at the assembled members. Let me be very clear about the future of this place. The Whispering Cypress Lodge will remain an exclusive destination. But our exclusivity will now be defined by character, not by credit rating. It will be a sanctuary for those who value kindness, respect, and community. For those who cannot or will not adapt, I smiled faintly, there is a very nice public campground about 10 miles down the road. My mother stepped forward, her hands twisting the pearls at her throat. It was the first time I had ever seen her look truly lost. But where will we go? This lodge, it has been our entire life. The anger and hurt that had simmered inside me for years finally gave way to a profound and aching pity. I know, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. And that, mother, is the heart of the problem. You confused a lifestyle with a life. You confused your status with your worth. I turned back to the crowd. For those of you who wish to be a part of the new Whispering Cypress Lodge, you are welcome to schedule an interview with the review committee. For those who do not, your current memberships will be terminated with a prorated refund, effective at midnight tonight. Celine's face crumpled. But the summer gala, the regatta, the season is just beginning. They will all continue, I assured her. With a few adjustments. The gala will now raise funds for the Valley's underfunded public schools and the free clinic, not just for a plaque with the donors' names on it. The regatta will have a new division open to all local residents. And the private beach, I said, a genuine smile finally reaching my eyes, will now have designated hours for public access, so the children of the people who have cleaned these floors and cooked these meals for 50 years can finally swim in this lake. Another update pinged on my tablet. The new signage was being installed at the entrance. The old, intimidating crest was being replaced with a simple, elegant logo of a cypress tree, its roots visible beneath the ground. A new reality was taking hold. As I turned to walk toward the grand staircase, heading for my new office, the former presidential suite with its commanding view of the lake, I called over my shoulder. "Oh, and Celine?" She looked up, her expression a mixture of fury and desolation. "That comment about the service entrance? You might want to familiarize yourself with it. Starting tomorrow, we're discontinuing valet service. All members and guests will be parking their own cars. Arthur and his team have more important things to do than cater to people who can't be bothered to walk an extra 100 feet. A collective gasp followed me up the stairs, a sound that mingled with the fresh breeze blowing in off the lake and the distant, happy shouts of children from a boat somewhere out on the water. From the landing, I could see the staff, my new partners, beginning to take down the velvet ropes that had cordoned off the members-only sections of the terrace. I had come back thinking this was about setting things right, about correcting an injustice. But as I stood there, watching the sun begin its slow descent behind the mountains, casting a golden glow over the water, I realized it was something more. It wasn't about revenge or even about justice. It was about healing. It was about taking a place that had become a symbol of exclusion and turning it into a beacon of belonging. It was about finally, truly coming home. And for the first time in my life, in this place, I could breathe.